on, you guys? You're up all night with your boy Deszi. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. It's a great night. It's a special night. I got somebody I want to introduce to you guys. This guy is doing some amazing things, and he has a story for you guys, and I have to share. And this is, I call him Big Bruh, but you guys will probably know him by Eliyah Hamner. Hey, Big Bruh, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, little bro. I appreciate you having me here, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. You know, I've been grinding and that. We've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks to get at doing it. So here we are. You're here. I got you here. I found somebody just as passionate as me once you put your eyes on something. So I had to get you here because you sell that passion and it's amazing. You have a story out of everybody I bring here, man. Your story and your passion is what is the reason I have you here, because I want you to convey that passion to people.
I appreciate it. It's not hard to have a passion when you done walked in those, shoes. You done walked in that valley of the shadow of death, and you done seen the evil. It ain't hard to have a passion to warn people like, hey, you don't want to go this way in life. You know what I'm saying? I done been there, done that in quite a way. I sometimes have to really humble down when I reflect on the life I've lived up to this point. And it's amazing that I'm even breathing, that wasn't how life started for me, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm that Cincinnati kid. I'm still a Cincinnati fan.
Hey.
What can you say? Born and raised.
Because we're sorry for you. It's okay. But Cincinnati, we understand Cincinnati. This is where he's from, you guys. And in case y'all don't know, because obviously this man has a story. He should write a book. It should be. I promise you should write a book and it'll be there, man. Because you have an amazing story to tell. And we're going to get into your biggest. There's a couple of things we're going to get into. Obviously, you running your marathon. But first, we're going to get into your advocacy for homelessness, man, and getting back on your feet and the journey, man. And to me, your story, for me, it's amazing to tell you that age means nothing. Like for me, as a person, to see you not even go through the moments, but to see you turn your life, your mind, your spirit around, like it's amazing.
You got an opportunity to witness some of that turn, that major turn. Well, just for the people out there who don't know, I'm a few years older than my younger brother there, but my lifestyle, the upbringing was a little bit different because I was brought up in Cincinnati, my brother in Atlanta. But, my background is with 4 of the siblings that we share and my sisters. And we in Cincinnati, Ohio, I was your normal everyday suburban kid, just hanging out with buddies. I have a lot of partners that are still friends to this day. They still back in Cincinnati, majority of them. But our upbringing was pretty middle class, so we thought later learned in life we were poor. I did not know we were poor. No one told me we were poor. We didn't think we were poor. But it was middle class living in Cincinnati. It wasn't nothing violent that I could go back to. I was brought up 7-day Sabbath keeping, house of God, and I didn't miss a day of church my entire life from out of the womb until after 18 that I can remember. Right. I was at every Sabbath service that was ever happening in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's what I remember.
Yeah, we both come from that one, so we know, sir.
Oh yeah. The church thing, brother. What can we say? It's in the DNA.
Yeah, yes, sir. I was in the deep South, so at that time we were in Birmingham, so it was none of that. I was sleeping on the front pew.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And just for the people out there, giving you a little background, I didn't really have no bad upbringing. My mother loved me. Pops, when I seen Pops, they was divorced. By the time I was about 5 or 6, they was divorced. But Dad, he showed up a lot in my life. At times I didn't even know he was there, and then times I did know he was there.
Right.
But Mom did the rearing. Mom brought us up.
Yeah.
And she did the best she could. But I'm one of them cats that hung with his buddies. So eventually that means we go get the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
That was what we did for fun.
Yeah.
And at the time, when you young coming up, peer pressure is a big thing for people out there, and that's kind of what began the journey that causes me to be who I am today. You're naive to a lot of the dangers out there in the world, you know, and you don't really see it. I wasn't in a neighborhood that was like the hood. We were the middle class, suburban type. So I really didn't see a lot of the horror stories until after 18.
Yeah. Now, when because you went to the military at some point, right?
Yeah.
What age do you?
When I was 18, well, 18 going on 19.
Yeah,
and that's when I went to the military.
Now, when you came back from the military, did you go to Cali then, or you went to Cali a little bit later on in life?
No, what happened with that is I went to the military, and that's when I learned about drugs and alcohol in depth.
Gotcha.
And you know, my little time there, I spent a couple of years, almost 3, but they asked me to leave, so I did.
Right.
There was no disagreement. I came back to Cincinnati, so I left and joined in like 83, and I came back at the end in 85, and from 85 to 90, I lived in Cincinnati. Okay. But at that point, Marcella wasn't whose mom. She wasn't playing that you can live in my house without paying.
Right.
So, you know, my first year back, I paid and stayed with her, but after a while, I had to move out, and that's when I started experiencing life and really started experiencing what can be technically called the hood and that mentality. I started hanging around a whole different type of friend and partner and lifestyle back then. So I didn't know it then, but I was pretty much what we call these days a couch surfer. I was going from whoever would let me stay to whoever would let me stay. Right. I held down some jobs though. You know, I always believed in you got to work to eat. Right. So I worked different jobs and everything. But for about 5 years, I lived with different people. I lived with my oldest sister, our oldest sister, Wilma, for a little bit, and stayed in that neighborhood and lived with some guys there. And when we got kicked out of there, I lived with this one girl for about a year and a half, you know, Section 8, you know, so I got into that lifestyle, you know. I wasn't used to paying rent or nothing, so I still get money, but I ain't paying rent. Right. Yes. So the way I got into life living was I ain't pay rent. You know, I spent all my stuff on me or whoever I loved to like at that time.
Okay. Now, so we're gonna fast forward some of it. So we know the background, where you're from. You weren't what somebody would consider this is how he got homeless in the hood. I get it. So that wasn't even an environment. You learned it after 18. You went around different places. You learned it. LIFE, as we say. Life did its deal. How'd you wind up in California?
Well, that was part of after bouncing around a lot in Cincinnati, not really having no direction. Around 1990, our sister Melanie was living out in California with a bunch of other family members. Yeah. She was saying to me, I should come out there. The lifestyle is good. And the funny thing about that is our younger sister also was saying, no, come to Atlanta. You love Atlanta. I'm like, nah. You know, by then some of the West Coast music was hitting. Yeah, it was popping.
That was a good time. It was a good time to be in the West.
You know, California was calling me.
Yeah.
So I left Cincinnati in 90. Okay. Moved out to California, and man, I got out there, and life was California can either make you the greatest person on the planet or consume you right away. It's a very different type of lifestyle from coming from the Midwest and the Midwestern mindset and all of that. So that's how I got to Cali. You know, just moving, just basically wasn't going nowhere in Cincinnati, wasn't doing nothing. So why not go to California?
Right. Now, I'm assuming Cali is when you first even got into the first step of being homeless. Well, different because as you were telling me earlier about some people don't consider couch hopping, as you were saying on there, as being homeless. At that point, did you consider that you being homeless? Because most of them, we think whiners on the street corner or.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing, you know, I didn't see that as homeless, you know. I'm living, and by then, you know, I have to give money or portions of money. But when I moved to California, that was the first time I went somewhere and my name is on a lease. So I met this beautiful young lady out there named Alicia. And I was living with our sister. And then, of course, she put me out because I kept coming home drunk. So I started staying with some cats that sold some dope. You know, they was my boys, and lived with a crackhead and all that type of lifestyle. And then I met my wife one night. I met her dancing. And I ended up, you know, living with her. So she and I, we lived together with her in her mom's house. Her mom did not like me at all. There was no liking me.
So in hindsight, you understood.
I have to agree, looking back, that she should not have liked me. It wasn't what she wanted. That was one of those, look what the cat done drug in. So I'm gonna just go ahead and say I was a mess. But, you know, my wife, she loved me. So we lived with her mom for about a year before her mom was like, he got to go. And my wife was like, well, you know, I'm staying with him. But we ended up getting married after knowing each other a year.
Okay.
So that's when I first moved into some place and my name was on a lease. That's first time ever.
Big jump.
So that was big. And by then we moved into an apartment. She and I, and she had a son, Steven. And so we started, you know, a married couple, living in an apartment, paying rent. I had a job. I always kept a job, all the way up until I ended up homeless out there. I kept a job. But at that point, I started selling methamphetamine, which was a big drug out there at that time. It was the early 90s. And in Sacramento, that was like the epidemic. And I was, you know, right at the pulse of it. I was selling it. I was making money, you know, and I wasn't even trying to be some good dope boy or nothing like that. I was just trying. I called it making extra money. I called it my spending money. So it was easy to make about $500 in a day. I didn't even have to try hard. I could go outside for about 10, 15 minutes. A couple of people run up on me. Then go to my job. A couple of people at my job always wanted $50 here, $50 there. I'd go to work, come back for $200 just because I showed up that day. You know, then go home. You know, just made money because I knew the neighbors. And one of my partners that was supplying me at that time, he was gangbanging. He was crip, but he was the main man supplying me, hooking me up. And so at that time, you know, that was, but in California, that was normal.
Hold on 1 second. Hold up. All right, let's record. Go for it.
So that, you know, that's how I get to California. What ends up happening is Alicia and I, first daughter that we had, she died a crib death. She died of what they called SIDS. At that time. So my first daughter, Chanel Yvonne, was her heart. She lived for about 11 days. It was very traumatic at that time because when she passed, she was asleep on Alicia. And it was the day after Christmas. So a lot was going on. And so that was very traumatic. That was a rough moment and period in my life because I had never lost anything meaningful ever in my life. And so that was the first time that the loss of life ever just like was front and center in my face. Like, wow, you know, something I wanted to have, I was never going to ever be able to keep. And that was the first time I ever like really broke down crying because I had to call my mom and tell her that her firstborn, only male, whose firstborn child that he ever reproduced was, you know, had died. And it was tough. It was really tough. And that was somewhere around there began the turning point because I kind of just lost focus and I was more in sell some drugs, go to work, make this little money at work. You know, my wife ate good, but she was concerned about the behavior. And I had a few neighbors who I had their soulmates hooked, and it was causing problems because one of the guy's wife she couldn't stand me, and she kept asking my wife, can I please, you know, stop selling drugs to her husband? My wife was like,
Right.
you need to stop selling drugs to that man. I'm like, you need to start giving me money for it.
Gotcha.
That's how I seen it, you know. Like, okay, I'll stop selling, but when he gonna stop giving me money? Stop knocking on the door to give me money.
Right.
I'm gonna make this money.
Right.
And so that kind of began like that. I didn't realize then that I too was an addict, but
Right.
I didn't pay no attention. I was too busy making money.
Gotcha.
So what happened with that, of course, the relationship deteriorated. Within 3 years, we separated. Well, what happened when we were separating, she never told me at the end of the separation, she was pregnant again. And so that was on her mind. She didn't know if she wanted to tell me. I was going to changes. We just split up. And it didn't take long once we split up, the place we were staying in, I decided not to pay the rent and keep whatever little money I had. I started couch surfing again, staying in whoever's apartment that let me stay in their apartment. That process started again.
Right.
And she didn't tell me she was pregnant until about 3 or 4 months into I don't have that apartment no more.
Right.
What happened with that is all my friends that I thought were friends faded real fast.
Gotcha.
And the next thing you know, I ain't had no place to stay, but I knew a whole lot of people at the bar because I used to sell the drugs, and I knew I had the greatest connection. So people was letting me stay at their house a couple of nights, as long as I got them drugs. And after 2 or 3 nights, I got to go.
Right.
And that got old, and the stuff I had from the marriage, I still had some of it, but I didn't have places to keep everything. I finally convinced my ex to keep a bunch of stuff. And I just had this old military sleeping bag, and duffel bag, and I took as many clothing items as I could, and finally just said, you know what, I camp out on the side of the road. And the other reason why I decided to do that was because she was pregnant. When the first daughter died, I wanted to be there if this one lived. So that's when I first experienced homelessness, and it got rough.
Wow.
It was tough out there, It went from having a wife, a family, a job, and some money to, I was out there struggling day to day to get what I could. I've always had this likable personality, but that don't help you when you're on drugs, and I lost my jobs. Don't nobody want to be around me. It was a tough period. It was pretty tough.
Right.
But, so, that's the California experience. And what ended up changing that was I called myself staying out there until my daughter was born. And sure enough, one day I'm in the bar kicking it with some folks. We had some beer.
Right.
And she pulled up. And I seen her outside. And I went outside and I was like, yeah, what's up? She was like, she's here. But, so
it kind of like that.
I had to quickly, wash my face, throw some mints in my mouth, sober up.
Right.
And I got to go see her at the house. She was at the house already. My baby was at the house.
She's here.
So she was here. And, I looked in her eyes and I just seen, to me, I seen someone that was going to live. That's how I remember, when I first laid eyes on my daughter and looked at her and held her.
Yeah.
I knew then at some point I couldn't continue the lifestyle. I didn't know how that was going to stop, how it was going to change, but I knew at some point in my life I'm going to have to change this lifestyle because I can't let this little child, my baby, see me the way I am.
Right.
So I straightened up for a little bit, not long enough, but that's what led me to Atlanta. So I straightened up, I seen her, I ended up getting a job, and one of our sisters again, Debbie, sister Debbie suggested that I come to Atlanta because I had a lot of family in Atlanta at that time. So my daughter was born in 1995.
Yeah.
By December 1995, I'm coming to the ATL, and man, when I got here.
I remember, man. I remember. That was a good time, mid-90s then, man.
Man, They were still having Freaknik. The
Yeah.
Olympics came in 1996. The city was on fire when I got there.
Building the new stadium. There was a lot going on. Yeah, you came at a good transitional point. Yep.
Yeah. It was Atlanta was going from just Atlanta to hot Atlanta.
Right.
Hot Atlanta was happening at that point.
Yeah, especially after the Olympics. It kind of catapulted. We really just started getting to where we are now.
It was a huge migration from everywhere. People from California, people from New York. Atlanta was becoming a melting pot in 1996. I remember that that was the year they boiled. It boiled.
Yep.
And it started boiling over. So, that's when I consistently now started to see you and started to see our younger sister, Lee.
Yep.
That's when that period of time started happening. But I still had a addictive attitude. So even when I got here, the drug addiction was separating me from the family members that was looking out. I stayed with I don't know if you remember your host, but I stayed with him.
Yeah.
And he ran me out of there, and I started working with because I worked with him for a minute, and then I ended up working with Mr. Hobbs for a little bit there.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving in with your host's wife,
right,
brother, and he and I lived together, and we stayed getting high and drunk until we got kicked out of the house we was in.
Right.
And I think I lived like that for like the first, 96, 97.
Wow.
It took to 98. I started living, I think by 98, I started living with our cousin, Randy.
Right.
Around 98, I started living with him, his family. And that's when that period started. So, so to push things forward, I went through a lot of jobs, and just, if it wasn't for Randy, I probably would have been somewhere in some gutter dead or something. That's the only reason why I say I'm holding life. I got a lot of friends I've met during that time frame that I'm still cool with, but I'd say from the years of 98 through the years of 2000, maybe 2008, I was off and on in different places where I stayed. I mean, just staying every which way. And finally, around 2008, I'd say around 2003, I stayed with my cousin Toa. He and I had a pretty good run of being roommates for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And that ended with us getting kicked out. So if you hear the reoccurring...
the common trend there, yeah, I see it. Common denominator there. Well, shout out to Randy for being there for you, so that's good.
He looked out. He's still close, man. He's still, he was a major blessing in my lifetime. So to kind of expedite, that's the lifestyle I was living. I worked, and he actually got me one of the best jobs I ever had for a while when I worked at a place called Seasons 4.
Yeah, okay.
And so during that time frame, I never told you guys, but I stayed in over there near what they call King Memorial train station, over there near Fort Ward. I stayed over that way. Got into an altercation with my cousin Troy's girlfriend. She actually put the gun to my head, pulled the trigger, but the bullet jammed. I just didn't tell a lot of people about that. A lot of my family members didn't know that.
Wow.
And then I didn't tell a lot of family members a couple of times. Couple of cats. Oh yeah. Well, we chopping it up. But how do I get to this? How did he get to all of this? Well, that was a lot of drug and alcohol use going on.
Right.
Got kicked out of that apartment, moved to another place off Gobby Road. Was living with the girl that put the gun to my head. Her brother, myself, and another guy was living in an apartment. One day he got mad at me, pulled out a gun on me, man. He had the bead on me. Ain't nothing I could do.
Right.
I don't know why he didn't pull the trigger on me, but he didn't try, he didn't pull the trigger on me.
Yeah.
So, I went through a lot of situations like that before finally, that had to come to an end. And I ended up living with Randy for a little bit again. And I was working, but I lost that job because of my drug use.
Wow.
So if you hear this reoccurring theme, it's me sleeping with everybody in their place, and, you know,
Right.
maybe or may not be paying rent, falling behind in all sorts of bills and getting into debt. And
Right.
at one point, what happened, it all led to when the girl's brother did that to me. I left there, lived with Randy, and then I lived in a house that he was buying because it was the housing crisis. So
Right.
around 2008 and 9, he had another house he had bought. And I went to help. Well, it wasn't even then. It would have to be around 2010, maybe
Right.
11. I started living in the house, and I stayed there for a little bit. And finally, I'm there. And our Father, who never sends nobody no money for no reason whatsoever, I had asked him for $200.
Oh man.
And so he actually sent it.
Man.
See, you learning that one too. He actually sent $200. People don't know our dad don't do that. That's a like the whole family members. When I told them, they're still amazed.
Wow.
He gave you what? He gave you money. Gave me $200, and I ended up getting high off the money and didn't use it for the purpose. All of this is leading up to, I knew I had a drug problem earlier in and this all took place in 2013, and my daughter had graduated high school. And I went to the ceremony, and I was there, and I knew, I'm looking her in the eyes again in that moment of when I held her, that came back on me.
Right.
And I realized, man, I can't keep doing this. I got to change. And that same year I lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost my job from the drug use.
Right.
And I'm bouncing around. And that's the same year I was like, yo, Dad sent me that money, man. And I got high, and I was staying in shelters. So now, mind you, I was staying in shelters between some of those apartments I lived in. I was staying in shelters. I just wasn't telling everybody. Everybody didn't know. So discretion was something I practiced.
So you gotcha. It's something we all do very well, by the way.
Yeah. We don't tell everybody everything. So 2013 begins this revolutionary change in my life where those moments happened. My daughter graduating, my father, who never sent me money. I spent it to get high. I'm still really technically on the streets, staying in shelters. I finally, first time in my life I ever went to a rehab, because I thought that was the dumbest thing on the planet.
Now, what year was this?
2013.
Okay, so 2013, out of all the years, it wasn't until 2013 was your first time.
First time I ever went to a facility for drugs and alcohol. And it was because of the military, and I'm a vet, that they put me in this 30-day facility. I ain't like the place. I ain't want to be there, but they fed me good. And I figured I'd be out of there in 30 days, and then I'm gonna go back to the streets, and I'm all right. The case manager in that place didn't think that was a good idea.
Right.
He sent me to a place called the Salvation Army, which I didn't have to stay. But at the end of the day, if I graduated a 90-day drug and alcohol program, they would give me housing assistance. Okay. So that was enough to make me want to stay. Right. And that's how I ended up getting into running. Okay. That's where I met this run group called Back on My Feet. And that began the revolutionary change. You know, we all got some spirituality in our family and background. And of course, I could go into a whole new story of why Eliyah. I could go into a whole nother thing about being a Hebrew Israelite. But at this point in my life, it didn't matter what I called myself, it's what I was doing. And so at the Salvation Army, I didn't necessarily like being in the program, but I did want that apartment that they promised.
So that was the draw.
And I got it. Good, yeah. So see, then I got
draw. You wouldn't even step through there. So that's
man. That was, and once they had that little carrot in front of the horse, I started walking the path of recovery. I got with this running group, and we ran 3 days a week, and I started falling in love with running. Like, you know, it was something I could do. It was, you know, it was positive, constructive. I really started liking it. And I started doing that, and man, I just started getting hooked. And within 9 months, I ran my first marathon. So I didn't join that group.
I
So I started my sobriety in July 16th. That's the day I went to the rehab center, recovery center in Decatur, Georgia.
Right.
30 days there. Then in August 16th, I was at the Salvation Army.
Right.
So you figure November 16th was my 90-day program. I finished it. And so that's when I went and got with the people at the VA, and we started, setting me up to get benefits. All of that started, and I'm running. But from starting running in September of 2013, I ran my first marathon March 2014.
Okay.
So that amount of time, I went from running 3 miles to I'm running 26.2.
Which is crazy, man.
So
it's crazy, bro.
Hey, I did it, and that was the first marathon. That was like the first thing I ever like truly achieved. That was just me. That was a moment.
Right.
And, I fell in love with it. I loved it so much that May I went to Cincinnati, and I ran the Flying Pig because I wanted to be there, and I wanted my mom to see me run. I wanted them to see me sober, and I ran it with my cousin Daniel, who was running his first marathon ever. He had never ran nothing like that, and he trained for it. And next thing you know, he ran it. So both of us is crossing that finish line with some major accomplishments in our lives, and that's when things started changing. Well, at the shelter, and I'm running with this group, they help people that was homeless. That now you can start to hear why. Oh, well, where's this homeless advocacy stuff coming in? Well, first, I experienced it. I walked through that valley of that shadow of death. I now have a good grasp on why people end up in those situations and in those conditions. But being an advocate for it doesn't mean, I'm just there to cheer people on. It's about laws concerning homelessness. That's where my education in this and desire to get some things corrected began and started. So the passion that you mentioned early on, that passion came from experience. I like to say up until 2013, I was a seed in the ground, and my higher power made sure I went through the mud, and he buried me pretty deep before a leaf came out. He made sure, I seen it. And then being a part of a homeless nonprofit organization and being at the Salvation Army, I had an opportunity to see how you help people firsthand. And being a part of that, being in that environment, it feels like home to me. And it feels like purpose to me. Like I can see purpose of why I would want to do this and why it's important to do that. So how we doing with time? We need to now we get.
1 second, Don. I'm gonna record this.
Okay.
All right, man. So we fast forward, big bro. We coming to you back on the feet. We talk about marathons. You ran. You done that. Did you say 26 miles?
26.2. Don't forget the
That's
0.2.
But that's crazy.
That's fun. I'm thinking about running further than that.
You should, man. If you can do it, listen here, do it. Why not? Because it's amazing to even see you do it, man. That's crazy. I can do about 5, and then I'm down on. That's it for me. So 26 is. I ain't gonna say I can't do it because you did it, so I can't say I can't do it. But
it's work. It's work to it. It's work to it.
But we got the back on your feet, man, and I think the passion comes from, like you said, because you went through it so much, and as much passion as you put into the addiction and the stuff, it's like now you're putting that same energy on the twist, and that's why you asked why some of the stuff didn't happen. Those bullets didn't go through that gun, and some other things that happened, man. It's because your footprint wasn't finished. Like your work wasn't complete on earth, and as we look at it in hindsight, that's what it was. You had more work to do. And you probably wouldn't have that passion if none of that didn't happen.
As a matter of fact, in the story, I'm not even dealing with the recovery part, the drug and alcohol recovery part that has me reconnected to my most highest of power. That prayer becomes everything. It's a part of my life. Whether I'm sitting in the church and synagogue, doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm going to pray now. I'm going to consult my higher power. What happens is once I start running and I'm working at the Salvation Army, I started volunteering, facilitating classes. So then it went from just being someone sleeping in the beds that benefited from being a veteran, going through a program. I felt gratitude is best shown than spoken. Saying I'm grateful is awesome, but it's even better when you can display the gratitude and someone sees your actions and say, well, yes, that is what gratitude means, how this person carried themselves. So it's very important for me to stay connected to the homeless population, these shelter facilities, because of what was given to me and what was put upon me. So that began to lead me to want to be a volunteer, do volunteer work, but it still didn't come to like an understanding of advocacy. Although I did some like speaking engagements, different speaking engagements for different groups and made some videos, it really didn't dawn on me how important this issue is for me to stand up for until the Super Bowl came to Atlanta again and the Patriots were playing the Rams. What was happening was city officials decided that in order to put on a good face, that they were going to get the unsheltered individuals in the city. And they did this during the Olympics. I just didn't pay no attention. They began to give them tickets to leave to go to other cities. And they started giving them reasons why they shouldn't be on the street. In the hardcore, they just pretty much arrested, knew they'd hold them in jail for a few weeks and then let them back out. Because they did not want other people coming from other cities seeing that, experiencing that, and that population being downtown Atlanta. They also didn't want the homeless people taking advantage of the visitors. So I ended up at City Hall because there was a protest by a group whose name is slipping my mind right now, but there's a group that protested. So I went to the City Hall to hear about the protest, and that's when I started learning about the different laws. One of them is a urban camping law here. So you can look it up in wherever city you are. But here in Atlanta, it's Article 106-12. It's about urban camping. And it's a law that's in place that anyone sleeping in any public place or facility or in areas not deemed for sleeping or camping can be ticketed. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to jail and everything, but you can be ticketed the first 1 or 2 times, but if they catch you again, then now you can be in prison. So looking at that law was in place and people didn't know that. And a lot of people don't understand that's on the books. So they use that law. And then there's another law. It's 106-08, I believe. And it's about moving household goods at night. So unless you have permission and you have a legal vehicle, it is against the law to move household goods in the evening. That's something, again, that you can be ticketed for. Initially, it's just a ticket, but if you get stopped by the wrong officer, who knows where a ticket can lead? And so those are the laws that are in place that a lot of times law enforcement officers, I spoke to a few of them about it, they really don't want to pursue nothing like that because that's too much paperwork and they start arresting people. And it just, all it's going to do is fill up beds in the jail with people that really probably don't need to be there. But with those laws in place, it makes it illegal to just be sleeping outside. So once I learned that at City Hall, and that City Hall, the officials was like, yeah, okay, that law is in place to protect people. It began to bring up the question of, okay, wait a minute. If you can ticket me for that and these things, I didn't understand why I could be ticketed for moving household goods. But then it caused me to start looking up laws that determine what is homeless. So it led me to, okay, well, wait a minute, what is homelessness? Because I'm thinking It's not just people on the streets. You know, you don't have no address. If you don't have a place with your name on the lease, I
Yes.
figure you're homeless.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not how it works in the society. Homelessness is this. If you don't have a stable place to stay after dark, you're homeless. Or, so you have to have a legit legal residence to stay after dark to not be homeless. Now, each city may word it a little bit different. So it depends on where you're at. But that's going to pretty much, that's the federal.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and anyone that wants to know can look up the McKinney-Vento Act.
McKinney-Vento Act. Okay.
Yeah, McKinney-Vento Act.
Right.
It's what begins the housing laws, and that's where a lot of the housing laws are. From that act begins to be all these laws that define what is squatting. Squatting is what I was doing. No, squatting is when somebody comes and they stay longer than a certain period of time in your place, and then they don't want to leave when you ask them to leave. And actually, by law, that is their residence now. You let them stay. Here in Atlanta, it's anywhere from 10 to 14 days. You know, it may be different. It's never going to be past 14 days, really 10 days. And if you let someone just stay in your home. So it started teaching me about all of these laws, and that if you stay in a stable place, like I come and stay in your house, and I just moved to Florida and I stay in your house that night, I can't go nowhere the next day and say I'm homeless because I stayed, by definition, I stayed in an acceptable place that night.
Right.
So you actually have to be like I was back in Cali, sleeping on the side of the road in a sleeping bag the night before you go get some help from one of these agencies. Or they're going to say, well, you don't qualify as homeless.
But
so
that's
looking at these laws and then how the laws are breaking down from city to city and state to state, and realizing the effect it has on people, it puts you in a tough spot, because if you're put out of your home, you can't get homeless assistance unless you stay out of it for 24 hours.
That's crazy, man.
Now, yeah, who the heck wanna just be outside and know where to go 24 hours?
Right.
You know, I just got put out of my house, but I ain't got no place to go. You go stay over auntie's house, you're not homeless, so the government don't have to give you nothing.
Right.
You got to go somewhere else. So that's when staying at these shelters and everything become important. Even though you staying at a shelter, technically you're not homeless. They don't count that as homeless.
You're not homeless if you're going to a shelter. Hey man, that's a tricky way to not help some people.
Yeah. So if you stay in a shelter, if you go stay in a shelter, you're not homeless. You're not defined as sheltered.
Wow.
And that's what's happening. So in a lot of these cities, like that really got my heart pumping. Like, wait a minute. I understand sleeping on the side of the road mentality of the unsheltered, but I also understand not wanting to be a person sleeping on the side of the road, but no one wants to take me in their home.
Right.
You know, I understand being that person. So who wants to be a married couple who got put out with no place to go, and they have 2 children and they got to sleep in the park?
Right.
You know, that situation is happening all the time. And so that's what got me into the advocacy over homelessness, and really leads to affordable housing, the laws, the zonings, and everything about where I can live, what I can afford. That's what has me looking at that. That's what has me saying I have to stand up and do something. Because we actually need more shelters, facilities.
I was about to say, now, in those shelters, and this is like, you had a story, well, obviously, first off, you had the desire, so something had to trigger to lead you to get to where you are now. Like you said, going to Salvation Army, they gave you the carrot, the dangling carrot, which was you wanted to stay at a place. So that kind of, luckily, that brought you in. It may not do it for somebody else. So what else do you think they can add? Like I said, Florida, there's certain places that downtown you see it real abandoned. And I always think, that's why I say if they really want to fix homelessness or really want to do something, they could. It's just no money in it. So I believe because there's no money until somebody finds a way to make money in it, they're not going to do anything about it. What other things, other than obviously more shelters, what else do you need besides shelters? Because I have an idea, and I'll throw an idea of what I thought, but see, I'm not homeless. I've never been through it, so I'm looking from another lens that you think can help. As a matter of fact, I'll go into what I do, and then you can answer from there. I believe, because obviously people use the worst case scenario. Some of them, and they can be true. Some of them at this point are used to that lifestyle. They don't want to get out of it. That's just what they choose to do. They don't feel on the system. They have no responsibility. They are quite comfortable where it is. Well, I believe that because that happens in other lives if you're not homeless. So, of course, there's a segment in that. But I believe in some of these abandoned buildings, man, if we had a program where people can literally not just be in the shelters, but while they're in some of these major abandoned buildings that they can do something, that you can put mental health in there, rehab in these buildings, make them maybe work with, like to stay in, but you're keeping them in there so they're actually doing something, trading school while they're in this building. So when they get out, you're truly helping them versus putting them back on the street just to come back in the shelter. How about while they're in the shelter, you give them rehab. Now, for people that don't want to get it, I get it. They don't want it until they decide to change their mind and want it. Why would you not have a building that you can have mental health, rehab, like a big facility, a work program within there? Like I'm in there with the whole facility, everybody that's in here, the only reason this building stays open is because everybody's working to keep this building open with a job that pays in trading schools and stuff. So it's always to me like, that's what, when people, we're talking about plans and laws and stuff people need to do. That's what I wish somebody can find a way, these millionaires and billionaires we got out there to put in these cities for homelessness. I'm sure it can only help the city if you can lower the homeless rate. It helps. They pay taxes. People just, that's just my idea.
I love the fact that in your thought process, you know, you have a heart and you really answered something that's a major issue. A person first has to want to do something, and then they have to be put in a position to be able to do it. So my first thought is, when it comes to homelessness, our family structure in this country is a disaster. It's a mess. It's I've spoken in front of foreign students at Georgia Tech College, and I presented to them, and most of them from the different countries could not understand why families aren't responsible for family members. So when you say homeless to them, it's like, what do you mean? Because other cultures and other nations, they're responsible for the family members. So the family structure, not that they don't have it, not that somebody can't get kicked out, but once your whole entire family makes the decision that, oh no, this person doesn't want to live that way, then that's a family decision.
Gotcha.
So family is totally out of whack here in this country. It really is. And so part of the problem becomes, I'm 18, I'm an adult, and I can go do what I want to legally. By 21, I'm my own adult. Well, you've taken the parents out of being accountable for the child and the accountability measures there. And now this individual who's still pretty young and immature. I mean, even at 21, there's a lot of young, immature 21-year-olds are out here. They're out here trying to live life the way they think is correct.
That's correct, exactly.
And it takes them, because I'm living proof, it takes them to get in their 40s and 50s to realize, man, I did it wrong the whole time. Education is a huge part of it, but that's not going to help solve the problem. So family is one of the answers to me, like the family structure. How do we get family involved in this? I don't know. The rebuild, the helping of people, like building up a property to rebuild a condemned building. I mean, that's an excellent idea. There's actually a young lady here in Atlanta. She has that type of program going on. And so that's what she's doing. And she's got some people with some money backing her up, and the city is paying attention to what she's doing. So that is happening here. And she actually is creating a prototype for other cities to follow. other people to follow.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. I met her, and she's a beautiful lady, and man,
Those are people need to be on
she
Front
has
Street.
that type of plan going.
Yeah, those are the people I think need to be on Front Street, because the more successful she is, it catches on. There's so many ways to sell that. They're taxpayers. You're putting more. You want to find a way to get more money? How about you get the homeless to get jobs so they can pay taxes? I think that'll help.
Huh. Well, but she's had a lot of pushback from city. Matter of fact, city hall was not agreeing with her, and a lot of people wanted to call her a slumlord until they seen what she was actually doing. And when they really got into the depths of, she didn't just rebuild some old neighborhoods and everything, an apartment complex.
Right.
She was building them near schools so that parents could have their children and they could be near some schools to go to the school. And then they would also connect with the closest medical facility so that people can start getting receive medical attention. Okay. And so then it benefited the parent to be there, live there, do a great job there. They had a daycare, they had an after school and daycare program set up at the apartment complex. So that the parents can go work, come back from work. And so she has a prototype in place that it is like sort of along the lines of what you're saying. They don't have to actually build it up, but they have to stay committed to doing certain things.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
that's cool.
So when they move into that place, they have to agree. Yeah, I'm going to help keep the grounds good. I'm going to my child be in daycare, all that. They have to agree to that, which is I think is sad, but that's what needs to be done.
Right. Gotcha. I got you.
But when it comes to homelessness as a whole, it's very difficult to cookie cutter the problem because it's just so many different ways for someone to end up as a potentially unsheltered individual that what we basically really need is a place to put them.
Right. Right.
That's the first thing. So they're closing down shelters, and I don't know why.
That's what I mean. If you have more of these facilities ready, then why not catch the people in the beginning? Like I tell people, maybe somebody's been there 20 years. It's tougher to catch them. But if you have these facilities I'm talking about in the beginning, maybe we're catching the ones that, just like you were saying, maybe a parent, two parents, and a kid that they just came on hard times. And this is a life-changing event. If you had a place for them to go right away before they got to where your story is years later, you call them early. They had a place to trade, pride. It seems like you can prevent it, at least for some. That's at least a step for me. But you're right, we do just need more facilities, period. For those that are already out there.
It's one of those things that I'm working with some friends at Georgia Tech, and we're creating a homeless pamphlet, an awareness of what to do if first we define homeless and what is homelessness. Then we give them a few options of what they can do if it happens to them, with a few numbers to call and links to places that they can reach out to. And then how can I be proactive in helping facilities that take care of the homeless? Because there's so many different types of varieties of ways to be classified in a shelter that it would blow your mind, because people just think, that's just where people go. Well, not if you're HIV positive. You can't just go to just any shelter. A woman with children can't go to an all men's facility. Some places are all men, some places are all women, some places accept families, some places don't. It depends on your situation. So you could be a mother with HIV and have children. You can't just go to just your standard shelter and say, I want to stay here. That's not going to work. Right. So it really breaks down to your situation. And because there's so many varying degrees of ways to be homeless in people's situations, that we need as many facilities as we can. Because homelessness it happens all the time. I don't care what country you're in, where you're at, people want to be homeless. Right. It's a reflection of who we are as a society and what we do and how we take care of it. And you can't sweep it up under the rug.
Which is what it seems like they're trying to do, but yes.
you know how you have those very wealthy families and they have that one family member that has a mental illness and everything. And when people come over, that's the one they try and hide.
Right.
And, you know, that's kind of how the country acts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And they're pushing them out everywhere else. We were talking about that. You see a lot of them now getting outside of downtown. You're seeing in a lot of cities, not just Atlanta and here. You're starting to see them push them out of downtowns. There's something to that. I know you were talking about it before, but it's starting to happen.
Yeah, it's like the infrastructure of cities are based in the downtowns, the metropolitans, the larger cities. And so business, money-wise, Wall Street, yeah, they want companies to be in these metropolitans. You know, the money people, that's where they want their employees, that's where they want their companies. Because, for example, I spoke to you about this before, Puerto Rico, when the hurricane came through, tore the place up, the first place they were able to bring up and get to running was the main downtown area, because that was the area where everything important was centered, the electric company, the water company, where all the vehicles were, where all the employees were, so they could get that infrastructure up and running. The people in the suburbs, they still probably waiting their turn, you know. So with that in mind, these, you know, the government see it, the wealthy see it, they're like, hey, if a catastrophe begins to happen, you know, we want our people to be able to get to work. You know, the people that work at the electric company, we can't have them out in the suburbs and they can't come in and do their job and help get the city up and running. So it becomes a point of, when it's into economic development, these developers are saying, look, we can develop your downtown, but in order to make it function well and be beautiful like you all want it to be, we have to do regentrification. There's a certain classification of people that are just not going to be able to live down here. It's the way they're saying, point blank. They're not going to tell you that, but what they'll do is begin to raise property value of places that just ramsack buildings, and all of a sudden they make it into an apartment complex, but it costs $1,500 to stay there. You're like, huh? Place falling apart. But you know, it's to scare off people in a certain financial class, and they're moving that financial class out to the suburbs. So we also have to be cautious in the fact that these houses out in these suburbs might be, you know, hey, we can afford it, but we're not looking far enough in the future to say that, oh, but if a catastrophe happened, if you live in the suburbs, you're going to be further away from mainstream supplies and things that you need. Like the virus that's out there, everybody's making the rush on the stores. Well, it's easy when you're close and you live close to them. But once you start living in suburbs away from them, it's going to be harder, and then roads are blocked and all of that. So it's one of those things where me doing homelessness has allow me to open my mind and my eyes and my thoughts to, okay, what's actually happening with housing and where people are being sent to live. And so homelessness is just like a beginning, a platform that speaks towards housing, regentrification, and regentrification is all about financial regentrification, not skin complexion.
Exactly.
We can't get stuck on that.
It's more classism than racism.
Yeah, so it's a whole different racism they practice, and it's not skin complexion.
They take all. Exactly.
The color is green, and if you don't have it, you're not the right color.
Exactly. No matter what it is, no matter who you are.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, you know, what got me there. My story that led me to here from drug and alcohol recovery. Thank the Almighty for that. And going through the days of homelessness and not having and hunger, and just really seeing life as just the person at the bottom, and finding out that, well, wow, I'm not a bad human. I'm an okay person. And what can I do to help? Where can I give back to those that stuck by my side, believed in me? I have family members that believed in me, they just know he needs to drop the drugs and alcohol and focus and, my relationship with my daughter has improved a whole lot. I have a lot of family members that now I'm in touch with that I just couldn't really stay in contact with. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like, but what's my purpose?
Right.
Why did I go through all of that? Why did I get tried in the fire of homelessness and drug addiction? And so that leads me to where I'm at now, where I'm happy to be speaking with my brother about something that we can see, and I potentially can help alter the thought process. I may not be able to change nothing in my generation and lifetime, but I may be able to put the words out there or the thought out there, or even a prototype of situation that can help change happen. And that has become the focal point of my heart and my purpose in life, and I can see it. And so since I can see it, then it should be.
And it's going to be. And we got these millennials that we mess with, they're going to be the ones that we know you guys can do the stuff. When we drop the ball, you guys are going to pick it up for us. We rely on y'all. We know y'all can see it. Hey, bro, if you have any links or any places you would send people to locally, obviously in Atlanta, that you would recommend, or any programs, even nationwide, I'm not sure, that you would send people to before we sign off over here? Now, in your case,
well, they can always look me up on Facebook as Edward Eliyah Hamner, Hamner, and start there to contact me. My Facebook page, I'm working on it.
Gotcha.
And I'm under the same name on LinkedIn with videos, footage of me. If you want to reach out any other way through social media, I'm ELIBOMF on Instagram. You can find me and advocating in those avenues and venues, and I will soon have a Facebook page going.
Hey, we're gonna push it, man. I'm gonna help build you a community of people so you can keep doing what you do. And all I want to do is just open it up to my people, like you said, so people can know. It takes people to look at it with a different lens now. Everybody, when you think of homeless, only thing you think of the person you stop at the light of and you see woodworking food on the side button, you on the interstate. We want to change, we want to give it another twist, man. These are humans that want to get out like you, is what I'm saying. Because if we think everybody's that, the people like you, that's the other story. Take that out. And we just gotta give them more opportunity to get out of this situation, period. So.
Yeah, and you know what? Each one helps one all the time, huh?
Yes.
We don't live on this earth all by ourselves, so each one of us can help one of us. Yeah. And that's what it's about. So if somebody wanted me to come speak at their school or at their church or anything like that, again, the potential medias that I've talked about is a beginning way to contact me, and we can take it further. Because again, I speak all the time.
Gotcha.
I'm a speaker. That's something in my family that's normal, natural.
Yeah.
I speak with a purpose. I feel my purpose is for the earth. It's not just Atlanta. It's not just Georgia or the South or the United States. I'm confident that my purpose is about people, the oppressed, the ones that are downtrodden, those that are afflicted with hunger. Those are the ones we have to turn and find ways to help. It's not about me helping people in Atlanta. It's about humans helping humans all over this earth to the best of our abilities. I just have to start here.
Gotcha.
Is where the start is.
Hey,
so,
it's in the word too. It's in the word. It's in the word for you guys like to read about help, but that's up.
My favorite one to tell people is go read Isaiah 58 chapter. You talk about helping those oppressed people, those with hunger, the ones that are out there hurt.
Yes.
That's my favorite one to tell people. Read that, then see if you can do it.
Hey, bro. Well, Eliyah Hamner, man, big bro, I appreciate you coming in just for this time to talk. We're going to do this again. We're not going to let them ignore it. You're not the invisible person. They're not the invisible people. We're going to have to hold ourselves accountable. We want to make people feel uncomfortable. We should. We want to put it out there. We want it to be on your conscience and feel conviction. We can help us a little bit. So we know we need more shelters, so we're gonna keep putting that word out there.
We're gonna keep saying that one. Speak that one into existence.
And you told me what's needed. That's the first thing first. We get to the other stuff. We need more places out there. Stop shutting down shelters. We need to work. We appreciate you coming here. We're gonna jump up off of here. Well, thank you for being up all night. You up all night with the dark out there.
Yeah, it's dark out there. We've been up chopping it up for a while, man.
Yeah, you
Be blessed down there, bro. Be blessed, man.
Be safe, no coronavirus, okay?
All right, man.
All right, bro. Peace out, y'all.